the snow, when the rain had stopped, and there is stillness, the rainbow breezes blow.
Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. After Jamaica, the world's next capital of reggae is, in my humble opinion, the mighty nation of Japan, as that sound has had an almost religious following over there since the 1970s. The land of the rising sun discovered Jamaican culture when the movie The Harder They Come became a sensation over there in 1973, and its fascination with reggae has since grown from strength to strength. With more than 400 sound systems and huge international festivals taking place every year, its relationship with the genre has been one awesome love story with lots of pleasant surprises. And one of them is the story of Joe Yamanaka, a Japanese musician and actor that was a close friend of Bob Marley, and the one that the Tuff Gong's band members would choose as the best man to replace their leader after his passing in 1981. His taking up of the role of the band's frontman was a masterstroke, as he was the next best thing after Bob's intensity, fervent vocals, and spiritual authenticity. His background and origin story, including a troubled childhood in Yokohama, was identical to Bob's in 9 Mile Village and Kingston, Jamaica. At almost the same age, they would both navigate brutal urban landscapes en route to becoming superstar musicians. Let's take a look at the story of Joe Yamanaka, Bob Marley's Japanese soul brother that took over as leader of the Wailers. While a 14-month-old Robert Nesta Marley was growing up in his grandparents' farm in the 9 Miles Village, a baby boy was born in a brothel in the inner city ghettos of the port city of Yokohama in Japan on September 2nd, 1946, to a Japanese woman and a US Army soldier who was originally from Jamaica. His birth name was Akira Yamanaka, and similar to Bob's situation, he never really knew his father. He would grow up in a Tokyo orphanage after losing his mother and stepfather, and like Bob, being biracial, he would develop a feeling of isolation as he came of age, as he looked different from all his peers. His brutal experiences in those early days made him very tough, and at the age of 16, he ran away from the orphanage to become a boxer. At 16, he was a Japanese version of what you would call a rude boy over in Jamaica, a street tough lad who by 17 was no stranger to violence. While Bob and the Wailers were becoming superstars with the release of their breakout hit Simmer Down, Akira was battling rivals for turf in Tokyo streets. However, in 1963, an almost fatal brawl between his crew and a group of radical students, in which he almost killed a man, would lead to his arrest and getting locked up for an extended period. While behind bars, he would get an epiphany that violence would lead him to destruction, and he decided to turn his life around the moment he got out, and he pivoted towards his artistic side. He chose the name Joe after a popular painter called Kato Joe, and along with his best friend, they would appear in the 1964 movie Bicycle Thieves. But I guess his Jamaican genes would kick in, and in 1966, he began to dabble in music and joined a band called Mystic Morning. After 4 years with that outfit, he was invited to join a psychedelic rock group called the Flower Traveling Band in 1970. This band would go on to a successful run over the next 3 years, before disbanding in 1973, and Joe decided to embark on a solo career in 1974. Around the same time, Bob Marley was also reconfiguring his career as a solo artist with the exits of Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer. And like the Tuff Gong, Joe would go on to a super successful solo career in the 70s, while also doing his thing as an actor. He and Bob's lives seemed to be two identical parallel lines, running almost 13,000 kilometers apart. But at the end of that decade, both lines would meet big time. In those times, reggae in Japan was still largely a niche taste, despite the visits of British band The Cimarrons in 1975 and Jimmy Cliff's tours in 1977 and 1978. However, in 1979, while still basking in the super success of the Kaya album that was released the previous year, Island Records would decide to explore new markets in the Asian region and lined up tours for the Tuff Gong to promote his new live album, Babylon by Bus. Shows were scheduled for him to perform in Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and most importantly, 8 concerts in Japan. Over 12 days, Bob and his band would put in spectacular shows and immerse themselves in the culture of the land of the rising sun. It was during that visit that Joe Yamanaka and Bob Marley first connected for the first time, and they hit it off like long-lost brothers almost immediately. They had so much in common, and their bond would endure over the next 2 years. They were like soul brothers, both biracial with deadbeat fathers, but had fought their way out of the ghetto to become superstar musicians. Bob would pass away 2 years later. What was left of Bob's band was devastated by the loss of their magnificent leader. Aston and Carlton Barrett, Errol Lindo, Junior Marvin, and Bob's father figure, Seiko Patterson, decided to choose a successor to lead them. Almost immediately, they settled on Joe Yamanaka, who, though a close friend of Bob, had little or no background in reggae. They reached out to Joe and told him their vision, and he bought it immediately. He flew over to Jamaica in the first week of April in that year and would acquaint himself with the band over the next few days, after which time they would set up their base at the Tuff Gong studios in Bob's home at number 56 Hope Road. And in just over 2 weeks, they would crank out the 11 songs that made up the album Reggae Vibration by Joe Yamanaka and the Wailers. That project was a phenomenal harmony of splendid lyrics, untouchable instrumentals by that band, who by then were as sharp as the finest katana blade, with Joe's emotive, raw, powerful singing as the icing on this gorgeous musical cake, possessing a vocal range of 3 octaves, not that far from reggae's greatest vocalist Dennis Brown, who had a range of 5. He did justice on songs like the album's title track Reggae Vibration, plus my absolute favorite As Time Passes By, as well as the inspirational masterclass of A New Day is Rising. I've left a link to the full album in the description section for your listening pleasure after watching this video, so stick around till the end for that. The album was a critical hit that was distributed and issued by a Japanese label called Teichiku Records. It sold well in Japan but saw a limited release abroad, but still a huge success that saw Joe and the Wailers tour over the next few years promoting it, during which time he would put out follow-up projects in Reggae Vibrations 2 and 3 in 1983 and 84 respectively. But his wonderful chemistry with the Wailers failed to blossom into a lasting partnership, all due to frequent lineup changes in the band, and most tellingly, the legal tussles over Bob's estate between Bob Marley and Island Records. And when drummer Carlton Barrett was murdered in 1987, Joe decided it was time to call it a day. He would go back to his solo career and release 2 albums before his former group, the Flower Traveling Band, would reunite in 2008. He did put out his last album in 2008's Reggae Vibration 4, aptly titled Going Back to Jamaica. A few months after, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, and sadly he passed away on August 7th, 2011, a few weeks away from his 65th birthday, almost exactly 30 years after his friend and Jamaican counterpart Bob Marley passed away from the same sickness. He was simply an incredible artist and a man of many parts: actor, boxer, philanthropist, singer, and a great cultural bridge between both worlds. A delightful bundle of talent that was the mercurial Joe Yamanaka. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, God bless.